Paul. Greatest Ashes moment?
We managed to bowl England out for 77. McGrath and myself bowled them out for 77. I got 2 and McGrath chipped in with 8. He helped me out a bit. But it's just a special moment and a special place. It's really good.
Good time indeed for the men's team. We're actually going to forget about the men's team for a moment because we actually currently hold an Ashes trophy. Alex Blackwell, captain of the victorious ladies team. You lot didn't stuff up this summer. What's it like to win the Ashes?
Oh, it's absolutely awesome, and to be the captain of the side at the time was really special. I was a part of the team that lost the Ashes back in 2005 when the men lost theirs famously, and yeah, it wasn't a great time to be a part of that loss, but we redeemed ourselves this year. And favourite Ashes moment for me, Renee Farrell, hat-trick, day 3 of our test match, just turned the game on its head, and we didn't look back from there, so that was really special.
And how do you see the future of women's cricket? Is the Ashes your pinnacle?
Not so much. We don't play enough test cricket to really see test cricket as our pinnacle. It's really the shorter formats. Recently it's turned to 2020 cricket. We're playing more T20 cricket than any other format, so that's now going to be the format that we're really judged on. And yeah, the one-day game as well, which we've still got World Cups and things like that we're striving to achieve. But we're currently world champions in T20 cricket, which we're very proud of. But our Ashes win this year, it's right up there with that T20 World Cup victory for me. And yeah, to be a part of the Southern Stars team at the moment, it's just really exciting, and I'm looking forward to the next couple of years to see where we can go and hopefully more World Cups.
Well, there's certainly an extremely talented group that we have playing in the Southern Stars at the moment. Greg, how do you see the future of women's cricket?
How do I see it? I think it's very strong. Look, I think the girls have done remarkably well. Alex is captain of the team at the moment. There's some good young players in that side. I think the 2020 format is a good format. The shorter game is a good format for the girls, and hopefully to draw more girls into playing the game. I think that's the challenge ahead for women's cricket is to draw the girls into the game, and I think that format will help do that. But I think it can only get stronger.
But our job is to make sure that young girls are inspired by people like Alex, and young boys are also inspired by Alex, but also that young boys are inspired by the Australian team. The one thing I saw at a women's game this year for the first time was girls walking around with Blackwell and Perry on their backs. I mean, 5 years ago that was unimaginable. So we really are in a very, very important time where cricket has to forge forward, it has to adapt. One of the phrases that was used, we all deal with the media from time to time, was that cricket was accused recently of being male, pale and stale, which was an interesting perspective. I can assure you that we are working aggressively to make sure that cricket is a sport for all Australians. In fact, our vision is to be Australia's favourite sport, and to be that, irrespective of your background or your gender, we have to be a sport that you can play. So that's my job. It's no small task, but Greg and I have connected exceptionally well. The reality for us is that if we get more kids playing, then better kids will come through, and by the time they're 12 and 13 and 14, people like Greg will pick them up and get them ready for higher honours. And also, if kids have actually played the game, they're much more likely to come along and support the game too. And that's a big part of what we're doing, and why female participation is so important to us. And just, I guess, a very quick stat, we have a target of having 750,000 kids playing between the ages of 5 and 12. We want half of those to be girls. At the moment it's about 20%, but it's growing very, very quickly. So it's a big shift and a big change, and that's why the work that Alex is doing and others is so important.
And Alex, you mentioned before the concentration perhaps that the women's game will have on T20, and Greg, I'm going to ask you about the men's game in a minute, but you've got 2 gentlemen here at either end who played long careers and have stayed in the game. Damien gets the women into the game when they're youngsters, teenagers, whatever. How do we keep them?
I think it's just really important as Southern Stars for us to be always improving in our game, and we're playing some really good cricket at the moment. But just for the exposure of our team, we've had 5 games on free-to-air TV this summer against England, and people are seeing that, and young girls are seeing the Southern Stars out there playing in the same uniform that Ricky and the boys wear, and they can aspire to doing that one day. And I think having that increased exposure each summer from here on, I think would just be incredible for the growth of women's cricket. And yeah, it's a great time to be a part of it.
What do you make of all the developments in technology? Do you see them as an aid to what you do? I was particularly intrigued by the amount of decisions we had that were overturned, and that must really suck for your confidence if you given out it's appealed and it's overturned.
In the last couple of series that this referral system's been on, there's been no controversy from umpires. There's been no blow-ups in the press, which has been in years gone by, especially Boxing Day, New Year's Test. There always seems to be something happening in those, because there's so much press and so much attention in those tests that they write about everything. We've had none of that in the last couple of years, and everyone just gets on with the game. It's not an easy thing to go be part of. As you make your decision, someone challenges you, you then have to sit there and watch the big screen as the whole ground and everyone around the world is dissecting your decision that you've just made. And you're just hoping to God it's going to be right, and you're nearly looking like this through the... But it's a magnificent feeling when you get it right, and you nearly give it the yes, I got one, right? Off you go, you know, you nearly give it that one. But it's just a different mentality, but at the end of the day, the right decision's made. Can't argue with that.
The other thing is that how often they're shown to be right. Yeah. And I think that's the great thing about it, and you know, Paul made a good point. I haven't thought about it, but there is, once it's done and dusted, that is it, and there is no great discussion about it. They don't sit down the next day and, you know, mark the card. But I think the great thing about it is how often the umpires are right. They do a fantastic job.
So it's good to see Paul still giving batsmen send-offs after you get it right.
It's just ingrained, mate.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Alex, one word that has come up frequent tonight that we've talked about is controversy. Can I ask from the perspective of the female cricketers who are pretty clean living, well, from what we can see, they're pretty clean living.
Well, you don't know
they're
what
great
we know.
chicks. And stay out of this group. What do the women's team as a whole make of the men's team when they're involved in lots of controversy, upsets, driving fast cars, getting heaps of tats? Do they have any sort of opinion at all?
I guess when we see things like that in the paper, we would just hope that maybe more of our positive stories are being shared, and the performances of the team and winning Ashes, winning World Cups, things like that are in the papers a little bit more than perhaps those other things. But obviously the public's pretty interested in the lives of those high-profile athletes, and perhaps sooner rather than later will be high-profile athletes as well. And I really think that that's an opportunity for our sport, and yeah, even within the time that I'm playing, I can see that the sport will grow really quickly.
Well, there's certainly been a development, and you can now actually occasionally read about the women's cricket team in the paper, which is very nice. We're pleased to see that. But Damien, based on what Greg's saying about the women's cricket team, with or without any knowledge whatsoever, is it better for cricket if you leak a few saucy details? And like, what's it like having a Shane Warne in your sport from a publicity perspective? It's unreal, no matter what he does.
Yeah, it is unreal. I mean, people like Shane have been incredible for cricket. He's created more news for the sport and probably commercialised it better than anyone you'll ever come across. And love or hate where he stands, everyone has an opinion on him. So, you know, characters in the sport are critical, and that's part of it's interesting. In today's media, all of you deal with it. You know, there's so many demands on keeping things within the box, and the reality is that we need characters, and the Australian population, you know, warm to people like Doug Bollinger, for example, who is outside the square and a bit different. Yeah, Dougie, there you go, he's well known. And Merv Hughes, and you go back to the characters over time. So, yeah, there's no stories to leak about our friends at the Southern Stars, but a very interesting story.
That's not what Greg reckons.
At the 2020 World Cup, a symbolic moment. The ICC decided to play the men's and women's games next to each other. The Australian men's team lost the final to England earlier in the day. And Michael Clark, who was captaining the team, and the Australian men's team stayed behind to watch the women's game. And it was probably the first moment, I think, that the Australian women's team felt supported by these high-profile athletes in that way. So, look, I think there's big opportunities there, but it's just great to see both teams. I mean, the Australian men's team is iconic, and it needs to continue to be. And the Australian women's team is emerging, and that's important for kids to aspire to.
Well, and you mentioned the fans as well, the women wrapped in the Australian flag. Surely that's nicer for a television viewer than men with carved-out watermelons on their heads.
Surely it is.
Technology has transformed golf. How has technological change in equipment, as in the bats and balls, affected cricket? Thank you, Alex.
I think, there's legislation that the bats can only be made of willow, apart from the handles, obviously. But the changes in the bats have been quite dramatic. Since I finished playing 20-odd years ago, the bats have really changed. Probably more in the last 10 years than in the 10 years before that. The biggest difference is that the bats that we used were full of moisture. The wood, just had a natural moisture content, so a lot of the weight of the bat was the moisture in the bats. Now they take all the moisture out of the bats, so they can have a lot more wood in the bats. And using the golf terminology, they banned the Callaway driver that had the rebound effect on the face of it. These bats have got a real trampoline effect. They're a lot softer. The bats don't last as long. They're very sweet, but while they do last, the ball definitely comes off it. So I think it's transformed the game in a lot of ways. I think if I use bats like this, I wouldn't hit the ball on the ground as much as I did when I played, and that's what you see with the modern cricketer. They hit the ball in the air a lot more because they don't have to get it in exactly the middle of the bat for it still to go a long way. So I think that's made a big difference. So we're seeing more balls go out of the ground or over the ropes, more sixes and boundaries generally being hit. I think you need to keep a lid on it, because I don't think you want to see the ball coming off the bat much faster than it comes off the bat, because otherwise the bowlers will be in danger, the umpires will be in danger, and close fielders will be in danger, because you just won't have time to react.